Hi, this is Bilal from Speckle. In this video, I'm going to quickly demonstrate a tool that we have been working on for the past couple months, and it is called Project Mapping Tool. In its essence, what it does is that it allows users to convert their CAD geometries into BIM elements. Currently, it's available between Rhino to Revit workflows. So if you have the latest version of our Rhino connector, you'll actually already have the mapping tool installed. So without further ado, let me show you how it works in Rhino. So first, I'm going to enable the Speckle connector by simply typing in Speckle. Here it is. And I'm going to put it right next to the Layers tab. And if you want to enable the mapping tool, you simply need to type in Speckle and then at the end add mappings. Here is the mapping tool. As you can see, the UI is pretty similar to our Rhino connector. So I'm going to put those right next to each other. And okay, let me quickly explain how it works. Basically, in its current state, which is really early alpha, we support 3 distinct workflows. You can convert your Rhino geometries, Rhino B-reps, polysurfaces into Revit direct shapes with categories. This is the first one. And the second workflow is that we support creation of native Revit elements such as floors from Rhino surfaces or columns, beams, trusses from Rhino curves. And the third one is the creation of family instances from point or block instances. I'm going to demonstrate these 3 features with the sample model I have. Basically, let me quickly explain what I have in this model. I have a bunch of block instances for this really low poly simplified trees. So these are block instances, as you can see. And then I have some, geometries, polysurfaces here for the fancy columns, and then for the roof structure, as well as the site model. Let me actually quickly hide those. So I'm going to hide the columns, the roofs, and the sides. So these are the trees, which are block instances. I'm going to hide those as well. And the rest is a bunch of Rhino surfaces. So let me first start with the conversion of Rhino geometry into Revit direct shapes. So for this conversion, I have the columns, the roofs, and the sides as geometries, basically. So I'm going to hide the rest of the model. I don't need the floors and I don't need the plants. So I've created this model in a way that I organize them by their categories in layers. So I have columns here in the column layer. I'm going to right click on them and quickly select all columns here. So as you can see, once I select some geometries inside Rhino, the mapping tool instantly gives me feedback on what I can do with it, basically. So we have selected some elements here. I can see the number of elements I selected, which is 63. And then the second step, which is optional, is I can select a mapping source. I'm going to explain this in a second. And the third one is basically applying mappings. So I can say that these geometries will become direct shapes in Revit. I can give it a name. I'm going to name it as fancy columns. And then I can assign them a category. In this case, they're going to turn into structural columns. So I'm looking for the structural columns here, structural columns. And once I click on apply mappings, now I can see that these elements are mapped as fancy columns and their category will become structural columns in Revit. Let me quickly do the same thing for the roof. So I'm going to select the roof layer, select objects, and then I can say this is a fancy roof. And its category will be the roofs, apply mappings. Now I have 65 elements. And let's do the same thing for site. Select objects, fancy site, and its category will be site, which is right here. Apply mappings. Great. So once I hover over this direct shapes, I can see that these are the elements that got mapped. Perfect. So let's send this into Speckle and receive it in Revit and see how it works, basically. So I'm going to switch to the Speckle connector. I already have a project called Mapping Demo. I'm going to select that. And since I already organized them by layer, I'm going to select these layers, which are the building column, the building roof, and the site layers. I'm going to send these into the main model. Click on Send. Okay, it's sent. Let's view it online. Perfect, it looks great here. So let's switch back to Revit now. And here I am in Revit. And from the Revit connector, I'm going to open the same project. And instead of sending this time, I'm going to receive data. So I'm going to click on Receive. And let's click on Receive one more time. And here it is. The geometry is getting built and perfect. So the beautiful thing is that if I select an item here, this is the column that I had in Rhino. And if you check its category, as you can see, it's now a structural column. If I select the roof element, it is under roofs. If I select this site element, it's under site category. So I can quickly map my geometries from Rhino to their corresponding categories in Revit. So this is the first workflow that we support, which doesn't require any Revit data, because what we're doing at the end of the day is that we are, saying this geometry is going to become like a column in Revit and use its geometry in Rhino. We're not creating any native Revit elements. The second workflow we support is the creation of native Revit elements such as floors, columns, beams, etc. And it requires some Revit data. So first we need to send the families and types we have in Revit into Speckle and then use those as the mapping source in Rhino. So what I'll do now is, instead of receiving this time, I'm going to send, and I'll create a new branch, and I'm going to name it as project info. And here I'm going to send my project information, and I'm going to send the levels and families and types. So in the mapping side of things, we're going to use these types and levels to define our Revit elements. I'm going to click on send. It's sent, perfect. So let's switch back to Rhino now. Here we are in Rhino, and I'm going to go back to the mapping tool. And this time, as I said, we are not going to generate any direct shapes, but we're going to create native Revit elements. So I'm going to hide the stuff that I mapped. Here they are, and I'm going to enable the floors. So these are currently Rhino surfaces, and I want to create native Revit floors. So for this to turn into a floor in Revit, I need to define its family type and level. So to do that, I need a mapping source, which I sent from Revit. So this is actually the optional step. You can convert your direct shapes into Revit. You can convert your geometries into direct shapes without a need for a mapping source. But if you want to create native Revit elements, you need the Revit information. So let's click on the choose a stream and let's receive the mapping demo. Here it is, and I'm going to select the project info branch, click on OK. Now I have received the families and types and levels from my Revit project. That Revit information is available within the Rhino environment. So I can select a surface. I can say this is not a direct shape. This is going to turn into a Revit floor. Its family will be floor. Its type will be generic 15. And its level will be level 1. And if I click on apply mappings, now I will have a native Revit floor available. Let me quickly do the same thing for other floors as well. Okay, here we are. I've assigned the families and types and levels to their corresponding surface. So I'm going to switch back to the Speckle. And now what did I do? I have the direct shapes mapped. I have the floors mapped. So I can send those. So I'm going to enable that as well. Go to the send. And currently I'm sending the columns layer, roof layer, side layer, and I'll also include the floors. Click on send. It is sent. Perfect. Let's switch back to Revit now. Go to the receive and click on receive. This is going to update my model, but now I also have these native Revit floors. The difference is that these are direct shapes, but these are native Revit elements, which means that they are actually editable. So I can, select the floor. I can say, let me quickly isolate the category, and I can say edit its boundary. As you can see, these are native Revit floors. I can play with its boundary, do whatever I want. And there's actually a connection between my Rhino model and Revit model. So I can quickly switch back to Rhino. Let me quickly isolate the floors. And I'm going to create an opening. Okay, so I created these openings here. And I'm going to unhide everything and send same data to Speckle again. All right, let's go back to Revit and receive it again. And here it is. These floors, now they have an opening. And if I click on its edit boundary, I can see that these are the boundaries. These are the openings that I created in Rhino. Currently, I only showed the conversion of surfaces into floors. The same thing is true for the conversion of your curves into columns, beams, trusses, etc. All right. So the third workflow we support is the conversion of, or the creation of family instances. So in this case, what I will show is that I have a bunch of plants here. As you can see, these are block instances. So what we can do is that we can select these blocks and say that these blocks will turn into this family type in Revit. So I'm going to quickly select block instances. I'll say these will become family instances, and actually the mapping tool automatically recommends me to use that. I'm going to say this will turn into a tree, RPC tree. Its type will be, 9 meters, and its level will be level 1. Click on apply. Perfect. Let's switch back to the Speckle and send plants as well. I'm going to click on send one more time. Okay, perfect. Let's switch back to Revit and click on receive one more time. And here they are. These trees are in the location that these block instances are in Rhino. Okay, so we can actually add more instances, map it again, send it back to Speckle, receive it in Revit, and those new elements will be there, basically. All right, so as I said, this is really early alpha. We definitely need your feedback. If you have any feature requests or a recommendation, feel free to let us know on speckle.community. All right, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.